Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to discuss weed control in lawns. It's something we talk about just about every year because you know what? Those weeds just don't seem to give up.
Well, and when we're thinking about lawns, there's a lot of other considerations because you've got trees, you've got flowers, you've got plants in your landscaping, all these things that are out there that you don't want to harm. But then again, you've got some weeds out in the middle of the yard that you just need to get under control. And the best times of the year to do that are early in the spring and later on in the fall. Typically around our farm, we look at April and October as great months to try and control some of these tough weeds in our lawns. Mainly we're looking at the broadleaf weeds at this time of year, but you could certainly be looking at some perennial grasses that are problems as well.
The other thing as I'm sitting here listening to all these crickets in the background is you absolutely can combine insecticide together with herbicide if you're going to go out and spray in your lawn. Now, obviously this late in the fall, especially if you're in an area like ours where pretty soon frost is going to kill a lot of those bugs, it's probably not a real big deal, but definitely in the spring you could go out with insecticide together with that herbicide and do two things at once.
Well, I just sprayed Tempo yesterday around my house, Brian. I've got some spiders that are trying to get in for the winter. I've got Asian lady beetles that are trying to get in the house. There's just a number of bugs this time of year that can be a nuisance. Box elder bugs are another one that could be a big problem in our area. So do take a look at that at the same time. But out in the middle of the yard, when we're looking at weed control, there's a couple things to think about. First, what types of weeds are you going after? If it's broadleaf weeds, we're looking at some tough ones like black medic, that's a perennial, or dandelions that are gonna have just a tremendous root underneath them. And those kind of weeds take a good shot of herbicide to kill, and also you need to put a herbicide on at the right time of year that it's gonna move down into that root system so you get a better kill than just burning off top growth.
Okay, now that's one mistake, is burning off top growth and not getting down into the root system. Another mistake that's commonly made is I run into a lot of farmers who say, you know, I'm spraying X in my pasture, I've got some left over, I'm just gonna go spray the lawn too. And the problem is in the pasture you might be using Tordon or Grazon, Milestone, Forefront. Any of these types of products can kill trees and shrubs and other things that might be in your lawn that you don't want to kill, plus the fact that they leave tremendous residual out there. If you spray Tordon or Grazon, for example, you might be talking 5 to 10 years worth of residual. Well, who knows if your wife's going to want to plant some tree in a couple of years and that tree then dies, that's not real good. So you got to be thinking ahead. That's why we're typically talking about just 2,4-D when we want to spray lawns.
Now, there's a lot of concerns about safety too, and people don't want to spray things in a backpack sprayer or a little hand sprayer that they're worried about having their kids around or their pets around or even just you spraying that product out in the yard. The good thing about 2,4-D is it's been proven over decades not to be a carcinogen, so you don't have to worry about, I'm gonna get sick later on if I'm using this product. The other thing with 2,4-D is its level of safety for humans is actually pretty high. It's safer than the gasoline that you're gonna put into your car.
By far.
And you do that every week. So if you're spraying 2,4-D once or twice a year, it's certainly not a big concern. But again, you do want to be safe. Wear rubber gloves, wear rubber boots so it doesn't soak in through your shoe if you're out spraying it, and just be cautious as you're mixing the product up.
Yeah, the LD50 on most 2,4-D products is 1,000 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. The LD50 of caffeine, for example, by comparison, is about 200 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. In other words, caffeine is 5 times more dangerous to you than 2,4-D. So it's just something to think about.
Of course, we're talking about dose per dose here.
Right.
So when you're out there spraying, that's the other thing is, how much 2,4-D do you mix up in a gallon of water? I get that question all the time. On my yard, typically with just a normal walk, I'm mixing somewhere between 4 and 6 ounces of 2,4-D in a gallon of water. But it just depends on you, and you've got to kind of play with that rate a little bit. Go out and spray some, just see how you do. If you're not killing the weeds, the biggest reason is probably because your rate wasn't strong enough. That's one of the things we found on our farm over the years. So I'd maybe start out with 6 ounces of just a regular like 2,4-D ester or 2,4-D amine in a gallon of water and work your way up or down from there.
And my goal on the farm was always to make sure I was burning the grass just a little bit, because if I did that, I knew I was using the very maximum possible rate I could use.
Well, even standing right here, I was just thinking, what if Brian sprayed this? What would be left? You know, all that would be left is a little bit of the grass. There'd be a lot of broad broadleaves here along the edge of a field, along a path where we have heavy traffic.
Yeah, but here's the whole thing. What I'm getting at is a lot of times we just don't hit it with a hard enough dose. We want to make sure we're using the maximum labeled rate so we actually kill the weeds, not just burn them back and let them come right back on us.
Well, especially right now. We're out in the fall. All our flowers are done for the year, in this part of the country anyway. Our trees are already dropping leaves. You know, we're at the ideal time to put a strong rate on the lawn. We don't have to worry about the drift as much or the vaporization or that kind of thing. And we've got these perennial weeds out in our yard. Maybe it's clover. Maybe it's black medic, maybe it's dandelion, different weeds like this that have big root systems that we can push that rate down in the root system. And the stronger the rate we can get into the plant, the better job we're going to do killing the roots and the less weeds we'll fight next year.
So hopefully we won't have a lot of weeds early in the spring next year, but even if you don't see a lot of weeds, we still want you to go out with a strong rate of 2,4-D again real early in the spring. Do it late in the fall, do it early in the spring. That way you don't affect all the other plants that could be in your yard. You'll have a much better control. You'll have a much cleaner lawn come the middle of the summer.
Well, it's not too difficult to clean up weeds in your yard, but what if you had our Weed of the Week? Can you identify this week's weed?